All right, I'm now joined by Slavoj Zizek. Thank you so much for coming, Slavoj.
It's an honor for me. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So you have, I should say before we go any further, you've actually at this point written two books about the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So this is the first one. The second one still hasn't come out yet. And I heard you. I remember you were on Mike Gilf-Brooks' show back in the spring, and you made a kind of maybe half joking comment about how the way that governments had to coordinate and societies had to respond to it was with war communism. And
it wasn't a total joke.
Okay, it wasn't a total joke. So that's what I want to get into.
No, sorry, not that this was part of a joke. It wasn't a joke in the sense that I simply mean it serious. In what sense? Can I go a little bit into half theory? Many Marxists or even half Marxists, Adorno, pointed out that the crucial dialectical category of Marx is tendency, like when Marx speaks about tendential fall of profit. It doesn't mean profits will really fall, the rate of profit. It means this is the general tendency, and even if what effectively happens, it's the opposite. Profits go up and so on. It's because the system reacts against this threat. And in a similar way, I think that if there is a lesson from COVID, is that even our enemies admit it, a tendency towards something like communism. For example, everybody admits it. We need to universalize healthcare. We need to coordinate it internationally. We need to limit the market. This is why, if I may improvise a little bit, sorry, this is why I wonder if you would agree with me. Please interrupt me any point you want.
Okay.
This is why I'm getting sick and tired, although my model is not a Chinese one, of this. Whenever people mention that the Chinese did it, get under control the COVID, they add, yeah, but what price they paid? Like limiting human freedoms, whatever. I agree, but nonetheless, the Chinese did it, and the key factor was two things. First, as it is clear, even you remember when Trump recorded an interview with Bernstein or who, and he even said that the Chinese president Xi, already in January or when, warned Trump that this is a deadly serious thing. So the Chinese took this crisis absolute after the first weeks of the usual communist in power oscillation. You try to cover it up, but then when it became obvious what is happening, they immediately took it extremely seriously. And they didn't say, but our economy cannot sustain this market and so on. My God, they put almost the entire country into a lockdown. They were not bluffing. How do you know? You remember all those satellite photos of how the air pollution, the clouds disappeared, and so on and so on. Why did this happen? I don't want to repeat that form, but because nonetheless, Communist Party was strong enough to say, okay, market is nice, it works, competition, but sorry guys, now things are serious, we should suspend it. And they did, in this sense, the right thing. They had a lockdown for 1 month and so on, and now they are reaping the reward. You said something.
People in Wuhan can go outside without masks and have parties.
What I want to say is that we do it the Chinese way, exactly. It's not even necessary. Take Taiwan, which is definitely not communist. But let's look at the few success stories. I will not talk about New Zealand because they are lucky, the guys there. They are an island and so on. But look at Vietnam, even Cuba, one has to admit it, Taiwan, Chinese don't want to hear that. So what I mean is that it is possible, my God, too. And what I even read in some American business institute, totally pro-capitalist. They said strike with full lockdown when the numbers are still low. Chinese numbers are ridiculous compared to our numbers now. But Chinese, all in all, had less numbers, much less than you in the United States get in one day now, and so on. So it's crucial, this some kind of social control over economy, global healthcare, and so on, whatever you call it. This is a tendency, everybody admits it, to some kind of communism. And what I'm saying, what I wanted to say is that all what is happening now, I found almost more disgusting than Trump's basically return to normality, this great reset idea, which is like the guy called Chris Galloway, or who did a bestseller for New York Times, he gives, I was fascinated by his self-description. I didn't read the whole book. He gives a quite correct situation that earlier we had 1 to 4, 20 to 8% rich versus the poor. Now the wealth is concentrated into 3% middle class. We know the story, but then what's his solution against egotism and for love and empathy? How do you translate this? I think it's these new corporate masters like Bill Gates and so on, and they are very important. They signal, would you agree or not, the change in today's capitalism? Because on the one hand, I've written about this a lot years ago, for me, one has to be very clear here. Maybe I'm economically wrong, but it seems to me the most obvious proposal that people like Bill Gates, they didn't become as wealthy as they are because of the classical profit. It's not that Bill Gates exploits his workers more and so on. It's rent, I think.
Right.
All these guys, Bezos, Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, they privatize what Marx called part of our commons. We are probably talking now through some Microsoft software and so on. We order books and so on, many other things now through Amazon. If you have personal message through Facebook and so on and so on. So it's paradoxically a return from profit to rent. Marx described the process of first it was rent. For example, a landlord, you worked, you paid him rent. Then it was a commodification of working force profit. Now we are returning to then, and this is to profit and to rent. And this, I think, is what is crucial today to understand again these new figures, which are even, I agree with some people who said, almost figures of new corporate wisdom. It's not only about COVID. Everything you want to know, there is always somebody like, not so much Jeff Bezos as Bill Gates and so on, somebody like that to give some wise comment and so on and so on. They are our new aristocracy, as somebody said. And I think this is maybe the most dangerous version, this new form of capitalism, the Great Reset, where, if anything, the opposites, the concentration of wealth, the opposite between the wealthy one and the poor one is growing, but it's crucial that this is or presents itself as what? When I was young, we all dreamt about socialism with the human face. Now we are getting capitalism with the human face. Bill Gates, the greatest humanitarian. But do you remember when Elizabeth Warren, she was not as radical as Bernie, but nonetheless, when she proposed a tax plan, which would have implied a very modest rise of taxes, right. Bill Gates immediately protested. Oh my God, this is no longer capitalism, and so on and so on. This is, I think, the greatest threat. The big reset, which is not really what is needed. Is these guys, like Bill Gates, they are not stupid. You know, Bill Gates even had a debate with Piketty. You know this.
I did not know that.
And said, I agree in many things with you, and so on. So they even at some point, Bill Gates, and I don't know who close to him, defined themselves as some kind of socialists, you know, but if you look at it closely, it's not real socialism. It's just social responsibility of the truly wealthy, and so on and so on.
Yeah,
so
I'm curious, you know, because I guess this gets down to what I was asking with the war communism question. Obviously, just capitalism plus, you know, social responsibility isn't socialism. But when you talk about what we actually do need, or the level of control over the economy that we need, I'm thinking here, for example, of an article that you wrote a couple of years ago after Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was elected, where you said, of course, we should support these democratic socialists, but it's ultimately not radical enough. What we need is communism. And so I'm hoping now it's possible here that, you know, my academic background is in analytic philosophy. So one of the dangers of that is that
really, sorry to interrupt you. Who are your great guys? Whom did you like in analytic philosophy? You remember, she now disappeared from the scene, but Naming and Necessity, the first work of Saul Kripke, even Donald Davidson was not bad. I have to, just to dispel this misunderstanding, as a Hegelian, I like some type of analytic philosophy, I must say. They can be very, very, in no way have I this standard European arrogance. You know, they are too positivist, they don't know how to reflect on things, and so on and so on. No, okay, sorry, I interrupted.